Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Red Reads. I'm your host, Mystery Red, and this is my disclaimer. This beta read and concrete is at the author's request. This video is for learning purposes. Today we're looking at a piece of original fiction. We are back with No-Ant-5039. They are working on revising their memoir, and so this read will go under their playlist. And they have asked that I title them by the name of the chapter. Since I've kind of already read through the memoir and this is a revision, that'll help them keep track of it. So really quick, if you're new here, welcome. Please like, subscribe, or comment on a video. I do beta reads and concretes in video format so you can experience hearing your story read out loud and read a reaction. This combination provides a beta read in a truly unique format. I do both public and private videos. If you think you might be interested in a read but don't want it to be public, fear not. I do offer private reads. First chapters are free. I do have a playlist for all of my public read repeat authors, so you can go back and follow a story from the beginning. And No-Ant-5039 is one of those who I have read for. And they do have a playlist. All right, so let's see. There's a note starting off our read here. My process lately has been looking at the chapters I feel really excited about and that I think more or less are done. Then there are the others that I am less confident with or just meh, it's okay. I know I will have some I like more than others, but I definitely want to feel confident with each. So I have been working to revise the ones that are meh, and hopefully they will stand stronger. I like this approach. I like this idea. One of the things one of the pieces of information that I have collected over my years of writing and studying writing, and I don't really listen to, it's funny, I don't listen to a lot of people talk about and give writing tips, even though here I am doing a read and crit, but mostly when I do this read, you kind of get the reader impression, so you know my thoughts as I'm reading, and you can know if you hit your mark or not. Oh, and you can also hear your text being read, and I think that there's a lot to glean from that. But one of the tips that kind of sticks with me is that every line, okay, you could say every paragraph, you could say every page, you could say every chapter, but if you really get down to it, every word of every line should be with the goal of moving your story forward. And if it doesn't do that, let it go. Now, I needed to hear that when I came across this, and I don't even remember where I learned it from. It's just something that I kind of got out of maybe I was working with a beta reader, maybe I was in a writing conversation group, maybe, I don't remember where I got it from, but I remember being told every line should move your story forward. And I needed that because, and No-Ant-5039 probably needs it as well, because we both like the words. We like the pretty words. We like the emotions and the sensations and the visceral, just a completely immersive reading experience. I just soak that up. I enjoy it. I relish it. And some people don't like that, but each author has their own voice. And so everyone's writing style is not going to be the same, but that's okay because all of our readers are different. And we are going to be attractive to the readers who like what we are providing, okay? And that's who we're writing for ultimately. We'd like for everyone to love our story, absolutely. But there's going to be a unique flavor. And what happens, I think, is we have authors that are huge. And what that is they found something in everybody's flavor. They appealed to everybody. There's something for everyone, because ultimately people want to relate to the story, or they want to escape from reality. So there's a lot for us to offer. Okay, so I like this idea of looking at each chapter and being like, oh, man, when I read this one, I get butterflies, or I get feels, and then, okay, I read this one and it's good, it reads clean, but I'm not feeling anything. What can I do to add more, to give more spice to this chapter, but still stay relevant? So keeping that in mind, we're going to dive in here. I'm a little bit scared. I don't know if I'm ready for the feels today. I don't know. We got back from spring break and found out our city was flooded, and I've had some really bad ADHD this morning, really bad. Did the procrastinating phase of it where you start doing everything but what you're actually trying to do, and I've struggled. So a lot, but we are very fortunate. We did not flood. We have stayed dry. My children are finally back in school, and I'm able to read today, so that's what we're going to get into. I'm going to set my timer really quick, although usually I manage to, the length of the chapters for this author are not super long, so I probably will get the whole thing done in 30 minutes. But I'm a little scared. I don't know if I'm ready for feels. I don't know. You guys. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I have the energy for feels. Oh, okay. We're going to do this. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Okay. Here we go. Chapter 7. Mirror, mirror on the wall. To Mom. Do you remember that small town street festival we walked through the summer leading up to high school? Colorful tents bustled with vendors offering crafts, foods, and antiques. There was a booth displaying painted wood plaques and calligraphy inscriptions. One caught my eye. Its wire hanger too fragile for the weight of its truth. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all. This was an ominous prophecy I wanted to prevent at all costs. Pausing, complete reader thought here. This this is hilarious, but it's irony, okay? All right. So you're trying really hard to not be your mom, right? I mean, that's literally what I'm getting out of this, and I can relate to that. But not just my mom, but like I wanted to be the opposite. I wanted to kind of break the mold and be super successful, and I was very ambitious, and I was very naive, and just not ready I was really not ready to face the world, but I was ready to take it on, and I had no idea what I was doing. But sometimes life in ironic twists is the things that you avoid, trying so hard to avoid, it puts those right in your path, and it kind of forces you to walk it. And I don't know if that's to humble us, to kind of make us empathize more with the person whose lifestyle or life choices or path we were trying to not walk the steps of. There's some things that we do that when we break the mold, it's for the greater good. Okay, I'm going to give example, a really huge one. When we were growing up, people spanked their children, or even beat their children. Okay, and they still do now, right? But a lot of people that still do it now say, well, that's how I was raised, and so they're not breaking a mold. They're not changing a line. They're just continuing it, okay? And then you have people now, they're like, yeah, I was spanked, and I'm choosing not to do that. I don't have it in me to bring harm to my children. That's not the kind of relationship I want with them. And so those people are making generational change. It'll be lasting change. And we'll see the outcome of that when this generation grows up, right? Or who are the ones who have chosen to break that path. But then we have other things, like I'm trying not to linger too far, but I do like to have, because this author does this study of the person, of themselves and people. I'm inclined to have this internal reader dialogue when I and just this one paragraph did this. Okay, just this one paragraph triggered all this. Then we have the things that we might judge even though we probably shouldn't. For example, society, we're gonna go with society, would expect us to follow a certain path, right? You go to school, you graduate, you get a job, then you meet someone, or maybe you meet someone along the way, but you don't go anywhere with that relationship until after you've gotten your job, all right? And then you get married, right? And you guys buy a house, and you start your home. You set up your home, and then you have your children, okay? Society would kind of lay out this very neat line of the order of events. And some of us adopt that line, and we that's the expectation we have, or that's the expectation we think is held. Does that make sense? And so then we don't account for all the things that life throws at you that make that obstacle course that sets you down this path that you were trying to avoid. Well, look, I'm still in school and I'm pregnant. Great, Oh, I'm not married. This is completely out of order. How am I ever going to get a house? Oh, I lost my job. I didn't expect that to happen. Now I'm losing the house that I did get. You see what I'm saying? So life is happening, and life can force you back to the spot, to starting all over again. And it can force you into a situation. Let's say I'm just gonna pull something out. Let's say that I was a child in a trailer park, and I grew up, and my whole entire goal was to never end up living in a trailer park. Maybe that was my life. That was one of the things I was going to avoid. This thing where I'm not going to be my family. I'm not going to be my parents. I'm not going to be that path. So let's say that I'm that person who was raised there, and I'm determined that that is not where I'm going to end up. And yet, all those things that I said, like, you lost your job. All right, so you lost your job, and then you lose your house. And then what do? You have to go back to a house that you can afford, and then you find yourself where? In a tiny little apartment or in a trailer park, right? Something like that, maybe. Or even a smaller house than the one you had. You have to downsize and start over. Life puts you in check. So it's really interesting that we are so sure and so confident and so determined to not walk the same path as someone else, but then we don't know what's going to fall in front of us that might put us back in that very same spot. And I have actually been humbled by life in those exact situations, not the ones I gave, but you get the idea, the concept, okay? So with all that derived just from this opening paragraph. So look how powerful that opening paragraph was. It immediately triggered memories for me because I can relate to this opening line here. Okay, so now we're going to go back into the story. Just to let my author know I got all that out of just this. So that, to me, that's awesome. All right, to have a reader impact like that where memories were triggered. Okay, so we're going to keep going. I wonder if all mother-daughter relationships are so confusing. I'm usually pretty astute, but when it comes to you, nothing makes sense, and the feelings generated were a source of pain. I spent so much of my life actively hating you, but in my defense, you were entirely hateable. Without knowing, I took that hurt and hatred, and it became part of my identity, as if a natural answer to the question, "Who are you?" would be female, 5'6", and I hate my mom. So interesting. So interesting. And she says that she was hateable. And I'm going to point out something that I usually point out here as something I would change, but the use of it I like, and so I'm not suggesting that in this situation. But to anybody who'd be like, why is she not pointing this out? Okay, we have hating, hateable, hatred, hate, okay? But the way that this author has used it, I like it, and it's working for me, and so I would not suggest changing it. It's very clear that the relationship is very broken, okay? And why is the mother-daughter relationship so confusing? I think in part because I obviously hope that my own relationship with my daughter does not become this, okay? And that's one of my goals that I'm working so hard at. And hopefully life doesn't come along and do that to me, but I'm trying really hard to be the best mom I can be and to keep my relationship with both of my children strong and healthy. Because that's literally what I'm living like. That's my goal right now. Okay, so I hate it for any mother-daughter to have this, but I have it. So my own relationship with my mother wasn't that I hated her. I'm just too empathic. It's very, very. It takes. The only things that trigger hate from me are someone harming a child or an animal, and then you can derive the beast from inside me. Okay, and you don't want to see it; it's ugly. But and it just it's like something else takes over me. But that's it. That's my triggers. And so when I look at this and I think mother-daughter relationship, why is it so confusing? Oh, it's so complicated and so layered, and there's so much. There's all the things. What is the mother's goal? What is the mother's intention? What is her focus? What is she choosing? Something's wrong. And if the mother isn't right with herself, how can she be right with her daughter or anyone else? That's just the thing. If we're not right with ourselves, we can't have good relationships with anyone else. All right. So interesting. We're gonna keep going, but I definitely have the impression, and I'm having feelings, and I'm sad All right. I'm already sad because I hate that. But we're going to get into it. Let's keep going. Towards the end of my junior year, you consented to enter an outpatient alcohol treatment program. I suspect you had pressure to maintain a certain image amongst my teachers after they recognized evidence of my trouble in my home life. And by evidence, I mean the night I landed myself in the hospital after impulsively taking a bottle of Ambien. So we see that cause and effect, all right? So you're crying out for help and other people are noticing, so you kind of have to do something to appease the masses or they're taking your kid away, okay? That's where that's going to head, I can tell you. All right, let's keep going. But that's alarming and scary. All right, we're going to keep going. Soon after your treatment began, your doctor invited Dad and me for a meeting. A lump grew in my chest as we rode the elevator down to the basement level of an old hospital. The chemical dependency specialist met us under fluorescent lights in a group room instead of a formal office. Not family therapy, no. This was educational in nature, intended to help us understand alcoholism. I inquired if they suspected mental illness, bipolar or something. So all right, so they're going to educate you on alcoholism. Addiction drives me nuts. It just drives me nuts. It's the most frustrating, sad, horrible, life-destroying thing that a person has to live with every single day, forever, for every breath, from every second. And that's awful. So I wonder, at some point it's really hard to empathize with the addict unless you are an addict yourself. Then you completely and wholly understand it. So it's very interesting. And I'm wondering, what did they say when they pull you down in there into this area to educate you? What did they say to you? What did they tell you? And I'm wondering if we're going to find out. Let's see what happens. With your mother's history of heavy drinking for 26 years, even if there is an underlying mental illness, we are not able to make a definitive diagnosis. Now, we don't have ending quotes here, but I think, so I kind of thought this person was going to keep speaking, but now it says what rattled me, so I'm thinking no. So I think we needed quotation marks right there. We're going to keep going. What rattled me wasn't that your physiology was damaged by the abuse, but the duration of 26 years. I had always assumed your drinking began when I noticed it. Those memories probably shaped around 5th and 6th grade, but it had been there all along, 26 years of it, long before I was even born. That is so sad. Which, then I'm like, okay, were there any breaks there? Did she stop at any point? Did she stop while she was pregnant? I can't. Okay, we have to keep going. So sad. For a long time, I would listen to friends talk about their weekends and routines with curiosity. The suspicion that we were different was quickly confirmed by my friends in grade school. Come freshman year, you barged into my room, interrupting a sleepover in a stupor. Out of it, you clutched the doorframe, wobbling at your hips, ranting incoherently about Michael Jackson. Sitting on the floor, Nicole curled herself into herself and hugged her legs tight. She glanced at me wide-eyed as if to say, please make her stop. Your mom is kind of intense, she whispered after you'd finally left. This solidified my decision that our house would be off limits to company. Welcome to the freak show, I mumbled quietly. I think you could omit quietly and just say I mumbled. I'm like embarrassed for you. That had to feel so. Okay, first of all, this child's terrified. Like, what in the world? I want to go home. All right, this adult is acting crazy. I want to go home. And then, yeah, not knowing really what to say, but your mom, you want to check your mom? And then you have to live with it. And now it's, she's shown it in public. Just, I'm sure it's probably broad daylight too. It says it was a sleepover, but at the same time. All right, we're going to keep going. And it was a freak show. The name calling, the nitpicking, the oversharing, the paralyzing fears, the jealousy that corroded everything it touched. Endearingly, you called my dad asshole. And like a compass always pointing north, you spun every situation toward yourself, unleashing a wrath of envy if anyone were to give me their attention. Oh my goodness. So she was jealous of you. Should it be the star of the show? I can see the origin of the things that drive me so clearly now. Nothing was good enough, and so I tried to be perfect. Shooing, you turned me away, terrified, back to my own bed during that thunderstorm. After this, I craved to be nurtured. So many times you told me you wished I had never been born. You wished you weren't a mom. You didn't know what you were signing up for, and you didn't want me. And so I wanted someone to want me. I wasn't too picky. Oh my gosh. So this right here, you can unpack this because this is perfect to set you up for a bad relationship. All right. So you want someone to want you. And when you're vulnerable like that, it opens you up to a predator. So the wrong person falls into your path, bad things happen. Okay. Because see, look at how if we are not right with our family and stable in our home, we become victims of other things because we're seeking what we should get from our parents from someone else. So now I'm worried. I was already worried when you had the Ambien, and then I was cringing because she embarrassed you in front of your friends, and now I'm like even more worried because I'm worried about what's going to happen to you because your needs were not being fulfilled. All right, so let's keep going. To blame you entirely for my string of bad relationships would be an oversimplification, but there's no denying how desperate I was to escape our home. I wanted nothing more than to be loved, to pour the love I carried inside me onto someone else. Eager to please and desperate to avoid conflict, I became a magnet for takers, willing to ignore the warning signs if it meant I shouldn't have to be alone. A survival mechanism, no doubt, born of my need to tiptoe around a home filled with alcohol and eggshells. So it's exactly what I said. So you have a cascade of bad relationships because you're seeking the love. You're seeking love that you should have gotten from your mother. And honestly, we could talk about your dad too, because you're seeking love from your parents. So if you're not getting what you need in your home, then you're on a path of destructive relationships. So you got to get right with yourself first. But this is your journey. So this paragraph and my thoughts of it led exactly to what I thought was confirmed here. So you're on point. We're going to keep going. At 18, I met my anatomy lab partner. Charmed by his southern accent, I married him shortly after. Needless to say, it didn't last long. How ironic that you were both alcoholics. Determined, I swore I'd never turn out like you. I wouldn't be a drunk. For years, I kept my distance from alcohol. It wasn't until my late 20s that I started drinking regularly and experiencing consequences. The speed of my downfall was shocking, even to me. I still fancied myself fun and carefree. You, on the other hand, were a true Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, inflicting fear as 5 o'clock rolled around. I was the yin to your yang, as funny as you were nasty. Until I wasn't. After my divorce, I moved back home, dating, drinking, and living under your roof. If I ran out of alcohol, I would resort to drinking out of your Jim Beam bottle that had permanent residence in the door of the fridge. I don't remember what we were fighting about, but one night our yelling escalated. Your eyes had that familiar wild look. You pinned me in the narrow hallway by the medicine cupboard, blocking my way to my room. Move, I demanded. At barely 5'3", wrapped in your faded bathrobe, you firmly stood your ground. One thing led to another, our tongues laced with sharp words, every syllable intended to wound. Suddenly your hand shot up and struck me in my cheek. Before I even registered the sting, my own hand was coming down from behind me, smacking you right back. The charged stillness that followed screamed, "Mirror, mirror on the wall. I am my mother after all." How had it come to this? Another wake-up call, one of many I had ignored. I told myself I would make it back, but the road was long and full of missteps. Even now I understand the fragility of distance, but I am no longer the same as you. Okay, so we still have more, but you have your journey and you have the incident that changed the moment, the snapshot that sticks out in your mind, and all the things that were surrounding it. Why are people blowing me up? Okay. So, let's see. My figure had always been slender, and after a few years of drug use, I was downright skin and bones. I had only been sober for a few months when I got pregnant, and between the two changes, my body morphed quickly. At about 6 months along, I was an easy target for your cruelty. Look at those thunder thighs, you'd say. Are those... And there's those boobs she always wanted. She just sounds so jealous. Just mean and nasty and just jealous. Miserable in her own life. She needed to go work on herself. You don't need that in your life. And that's the sad thing. We have to it's like we have to like cut them off because they have their own work to do, and we can't continue to go down with them. It's weird, and it seems like it's like wrong, but and it is, and that's what's so messed up about it is because it's supposed to be your family, it's supposed to be your support base, it's supposed to be there for you no matter what, forever and ever. And when it fails, you wonder what you did wrong, but this isn't us. They have to do their own work, and if they don't want to do the work, that's their journey and that's their karma. And then they have to come back and they have to do this all over again because they didn't get it right. They didn't learn. They didn't choose a different path. So we have to walk that difficult path and make a different choice and start something new so that we don't pass this on to our children. All right, we got to keep going. Those are all my reader thoughts. Okay. You're supposed to gain weight in your belly, not your arms and face. You're going to have to lose all of this. You were relentless, casting disapproving glances. Jaw clenched, I walked away, your words settling under my skin. When I was younger, I internalized your bullying. Now I was about to bring a daughter into the world, and I couldn't distance myself from your voice in my head. But somehow, I knew I needed to. We took a walk down your oak tree-lined neighborhood, a deceptively serene backdrop for what I hoped would be a turning point. I chose my words carefully, tiptoeing around the landmines of your defensiveness. I need you to stop commenting on my body, I said, my heart racing in my chest. I'm thinking you could actually omit this part because it's kind of redundant to my heart racing. We know where your heart lies in your body. So I'm just going to suggest that. We're keep going. Of all the things, you said nothing. Not a single word. You turned around and started walking back home, leaving me standing there, stunned. No acknowledgement, no apology, and of course the comments didn't stop. Your silence was louder than anything you'd ever said. It hit me. There had never been a safe space for me, not with you. My voice was too inconvenient for your fragile defenses. Standing there, I saw myself for the first time, angry, hurt, but also capable of change. It occurred to me, without having them role modeled, I wasn't good at issuing apologies either. So now I practice. I keep the door open, and every time I say I'm sorry, I think of you and what it felt like to watch you walk away. I started looking at you too, for the first time ever. I reflected without judgment. Pause, I'm going to stop myself. I also work at apologies. And it's funny because I love my husband, but he doesn't want to apologize when he messes up. He doesn't want to. He'd rather say nothing at all. But, and that's because that's his version of a concession, he tells me, that when he doesn't say anything, it means I was right. But apologies matter, but only sincere apologies, not the ones you have to tell someone you should apologize to me. That was horrible. You know, when you have to tell them that and they do it, it doesn't mean it just doesn't have the same impact. You know, it needs to be meaningful. And when it's meaningful, it matters. And so I do apologize to my children when I make a mistake. And they are preteen and teenager. And I have always done that. I've always been like, you know what? I could have handled that better, and I'm very sorry. And then I might explain why I handled, so like, you know, in the moment when your emotions are racing, you sometimes do things that or say things that you don't mean. But it's one of those things that I don't do. And all that nitpicking she did against your body, I never had anyone tell me I was pretty or beautiful or that I looked nice. It was never anything positive. It was always, you know, brush your hair or straighten your shirt or go change your clothes. You know, it was always something not nice. It was never anything positive, supportive, or encouraging. And so I needed that, and I sought that, and I wanted that. And so that's something I do to my children. I'm like, you know, you're so smart. You're doing so well, you know, and I encourage them, and I try to say positive, supportive, encouraging things to them, so that they have a solid foundation with me. So again, we're creating a new path, but I'm relating to all of this. Okay, we're going to keep going. Let's see. So she needed to go work on herself. She just did not want to do the work. She'd rather drink it away. And only it doesn't go anywhere. And then it drags down everybody around you, and no one wants to be with you. Let's see. Okay, yeah, we're on the spot. I started looking at you too. For the first time ever, I reflected without judgment. It wasn't a desire to psychoanalyze you, but a curiosity born in my newfound compassion. Like reading a biography, I began piecing together the fragments of your life that I was aware of. Yeah. I wonder, did your mom like ever, when you ask about, when you'd ask about your family, her family, did she talk to you about it openly? Because like my mom wouldn't. I mean, I have like, I don't even hardly have names for some people. I just have nothing. And she's never said a single nice thing about her mother ever, ever. I'm like, is there anything nice about her at all? Nope. And I'm like, but then when I talked to like my sister who actually got to know her, she's like, she was a normal grandma. I'm like, okay. But so I don't, is the relationship is she taking out her misery on her child? Because that's what this is. She's taken out her misery on you, and then you've decided not to do this to your child. Okay, let's see. But you're reflecting without judgment. See, I reflected and I tried to be empathetic. I tried to empathize, and to some point, you can't do that either. You can be sorry that something turned out and that the way it did, and that they reacted the way they did, but we still can't change that, because every action that they take since then, and then they continue to take, we can't control. They only have that, so they have to want to change. They have to be aware, and they have to work at it, just like we do. And if they chose not to, there's nothing we can do. So we have to let go. It's so hard. All right. So it sounds like you were trying to rationalize it. You're not trying to analyze it. You just kind of want to look at it and kind of study it, and maybe even figure out some things about yourself by looking at it. So let's see what came next. You were the middle child of 7 kids. Grandma was stoic, not affectionate. I have no doubt you craved to be seen and loved just as I did. A misunderstanding over a bike with a broken chain left you scraped and bruised and at odds with your siblings. You and your sisters attended school on a scholarship, comparing yourself to each other and peers from old money family. The sibling rivalry must not have been easy. Your older sisters always got to go with your dad to father-daughter weekends, while you were escorted by an uncle. Just home from college, you were the one to find your dad dead. What a profound trauma. I can't imagine performing CPR on anyone, let alone a parent. You must have been devastated. But I wouldn't know. You never share your inner world with me. The thought of forgiving you wasn't even on my radar. Yet, in some abstract, mysterious way, healing began when I found out I was expecting a little girl of my own. Pregnancy stirred up fears of inadequacy, doubt often stealing my sleep. Lying awake in the still hours of the night, I fell deep into reflections, uncovering memories and patterns I would never have anticipated. My heart was so full, swollen with a love so profound it was foreign, my love for my daughter. Had you ever laid awake with me growing inside you, full of dreams and possibilities? Had you imagined a life for me and us before the reality of responsibility consumed you? Or had you always been struggling in ways I couldn't comprehend? Those questions lingered, softening the edges of my anger. Inside me, something shifted. I have 6 spiral notebooks in a tote in my closet, each one nauseatingly full of self-reflection. Through this process, as I grew to know myself, why I did everything I've ever done, I found the clarity and compassion necessary to let it all go. And when I heard the phrase, "Forgiveness does not mean approval," everything clicked. This idea helped me begin to untangle the deep threads of hatred woven tightly into my being. Once upon a time, you were a child too. Before you were my mother, you were just a girl, scraped knees, a hopeful smile, longing to be seen. You have the tools you have. I've come to believe you were incapable of being anything other than who you are, wounded. You drank and still do today because you couldn't cope, and you hated me because you hated yourself. Where I once saw only the confusion and pain you caused, I now see the fragile humanness beneath the alcohol, the armor you built to protect yourself. Somewhere in all of this, I pitied you and grieved for myself. With time, that pity softened into something else, an understanding, a reluctant sort of love. It's grown into an acceptance, and now, quite unexpectedly, into forgiveness. With love, your daughter. Okay, so all the feels are there. I got the feels in my throat. I got them when we started empathizing and visualizing her as a child and realizing that she's a person who has been on her own journey. Only, like I had said before, she didn't I don't want to say she didn't have the strength. Maybe she didn't have the awareness, or didn't, things didn't, she chose, and honestly, it's a choice. Every action that we make is a choice. Every path that lays before us, we have to choose. And so when you continue to choose the same thing again and again and again, you cannot expect a different result, a different outcome. And we have to work hard at change. So oh my gosh, so many feels. So many feels. Got a lump in the back of my throat. When did I start to feel it? Well, let's see. It read so beautifully, I kept going. I think when you start empathizing with her as a person, what was going through your head when you were pregnant with me? What were you thinking? And then, once upon a time you were a child too. I think that at the heart of it, whenever someone is failing, I remind myself that they are on a journey too. And at some point in the journey, things weren't going right, and things went wrong. And even if it's something small, like when somebody's acting crazy, like, they're driving crazy, let's say someone cuts me off while I'm driving down the road. Well, my first instinct is to be like, oh, how rude, right? Well, I immediately follow that up with, oh my gosh, they must be trying to get somewhere in a hurry. I hope that nothing bad has happened. We don't know what's going on inside that car, right? And when people are reactive and they're angry and they're throwing a fit, there's something under the surface that is causing that. It's not even always the exact thing that they're blowing up about. People are so interesting and deep, and we have to give pause and think and realize, once upon a time, every single adult out there was a child. And some of the big problems that we face every day is because something we needed as a child wasn't there. And unless we give it to ourselves, we can't give it to someone else. So unless you have given yourself everything that your mom didn't give to you that you needed, and allowed yourself, to have those things, then it's hard to fill someone else's cup from an empty one. So you've got a daughter that you want to have all her needs met, right? So you have to fill your own needs before you can fill hers. So it's awesome that you did all this internal work. And it seems like for you, the pivotal moment was actually finding out you were having your daughter. So that's awesome. It's so relatable, especially as a mother. Why is it flagging acknowledgement? It wants it spelled differently, maybe? Yeah, it does. It wants an E right there. And then, yeah, there was very little I'd change on here. I did notice a similar sound in the way you paired some words, so I want to look at that if I can find it. Okay, with time that pity softened into something else. I'm going to highlight that for a second because there was something similar, I feel like, earlier on in here. And because it's so, let's see how it's arranged. There was another kind of changing as you reflect. Where was it? I'm going to pause for a second so you don't have to just wait for me to find it. Okay, I do not know why this phrase stuck out to me, but it did. And my brain wanted to hold on to it, but I don't see a reason for it. So I don't know why, but it grabbed it and it stuck out to me. I don't know why. With time, that pitying softened into something else. I like it. I like the bending and shaping and reshaping of yourself. I like your self-awareness too. All right, so I do have feels when I read this. It's an emotionally charged segment, but then most of your stuff was very profound. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to point out before I wrap up? I think we're good. Kind of talked about my feels on everything as I read it, and I did some studying on it. Just a few small little suggestions here and there. I love your voice. I love reading your stuff. Okay, well, I guess that's going to be it for me. I hope you're doing well, and I hope that something about this helps you out, and I'll talk to you soon.